Hello, welcome to Unlocking Buddhism. Let me ask you something, and be honest with yourself, even if it feels a little strange. Have you ever had one of those days where everything looks fine on the outside, but inside something just feels off? You wake up, go through the motions, maybe even laugh a little, but underneath it all, there's this quiet feeling like something's missing. You're not in danger. Nothing terrible has happened, but still, there's a restlessness, a tension, a sense that you're not fully okay. And the worst part? You don't really know why. Maybe you've tried to shake it off. Maybe you've kept yourself busy, distracted, productive, hoping that if you just keep moving, that feeling will go away. But it lingers, quiet, persistent, like a fog you can't quite explain. If you felt that way, and most of us have, this video is for you. We're going to talk about the things we were never really taught, but absolutely need to understand if we want to feel a little more whole. We'll explore why discomfort is a normal part of life, and how our desperate search to avoid it often creates even more pain. We'll look at the subtle ways our ego traps us in suffering, and how we accidentally train ourselves to react in ways that make life harder. We'll talk about what it really means to sit with yourself, not just physically, but emotionally, and how that simple act can change everything. You'll also hear about the role of kindness, not as something soft or sweet, but as one of the most powerful forms of strength we can cultivate. And finally, we'll talk about wisdom, not the kind that comes from books or big words, but the quiet clarity that grows when you start to see yourself and the world a little more honestly. Now, before we begin, I'd love to ask you something simple. Just take a moment, pause, and ask yourself, how have I been feeling lately? Whatever the answer is, even if it's strange or messy or hard to explain, I want to invite you to write just one word in the comments. One word that captures how you're doing right now. Maybe it's tired, maybe it's curious, maybe it's hopeful, or frustrated, or peaceful. Whatever it is, put it out there. Because sometimes, just saying it, just naming it, reminds us that we're not alone, that someone else, somewhere, probably feels the same way too. So take a breath. Let go of the idea that you need to fix anything right now. You don't. This is not about solving you. It's about seeing you, sitting with you, learning to be with yourself in a different way. Ready? Let's begin. You wake up, stretch, check your phone, get out of bed. And yet, beneath it all, there's this low, constant hum of discomfort. Maybe your body feels tight or tired. Maybe your mind is already racing, anxious about something that hasn't even happened yet. Maybe you're not even sure why, but there's this quiet background noise of unease, and you assume it means something's wrong with you. The truth? That feeling is not a mistake. It's not a failure in the system. It's not a sign that your life is broken or your mind is faulty. It's simply what it means to be human. See, we've been sold this idea in commercials, in movies, in social media highlight reels, that life is supposed to feel amazing all the time. That once you finally get everything just right, the perfect job, the perfect body, the perfect partner, the perfect morning routine, then you'll finally be able to breathe, to relax, to feel happy and whole. But that's a fantasy. And deep down, I think we know it. Because no matter how much you achieve, how comfortable your couch is, or how many checkboxes you tick off your life goals list, that hum of discomfort always returns. Maybe not loudly, maybe just as a whisper, but it's there. And the mistake we make, over and over again, is thinking that our job is to chase it away. We think we need to fix it, silence it, outsmart it. So we scroll, we snack, we shop, we run. We fill every quiet moment with noise, distraction, or dopamine, anything to avoid that unsettling feeling that maybe peace isn't something we can buy. But what if we've been looking at this all wrong? What if the goal isn't to eliminate discomfort at all, but to build the kind of strength that allows us to live with it, without losing ourselves? This is where meditation becomes something far more powerful than people think. Because meditation isn't about reaching some blissful Zen-like state where nothing bothers you anymore. It's about learning how to sit with what is, the boredom, the fidgeting, the ache in your knee, the noise in your mind, and just breathe with it. No fixing, no running, just being. And over time, what you start to notice is that your power isn't in controlling the world around you. It's in how gently, patiently, and courageously you respond when things get uncomfortable. When you can stay calm inside, even when everything outside is noisy or uncertain, that's freedom, that's resilience, that's peace. Because here's the truth, life doesn't get easier, but you get better at living it. And when you stop chasing comfort and start building the capacity to stay steady in the storm, you discover something incredible. You were never supposed to feel perfect. You were supposed to feel alive. And being alive means feeling everything. So no, that quiet discomfort isn't your enemy. It's your invitation. An invitation to meet yourself, just as you are, and realize you can handle this. You've always been able to. And being alive means feeling everything. So no, that quiet discomfort isn't your enemy. It's your invitation. An invitation to meet yourself, just as you are, and realize you can handle this. You've always been able to. This is where your story begins. But as we begin to sit with ourselves, as we start to lean into that discomfort instead of running from it, something else quickly becomes clear. There's another layer beneath the surface, something that turns small moments of unease into full-blown suffering, something that makes a minor inconvenience feel like the end of the world, or a passing thought feel like a personal attack. And it doesn't come from the outside. It lives within us. It's quiet, but powerful. Familiar, but often unnoticed. It's our ego. The answer? It's something inside all of us. Something powerful, sneaky, and usually invisible. It's our ego. Now, when people hear that word, they usually think of someone arrogant, full of themselves, bragging all the time. But that's just one version of ego. What I'm talking about is much more subtle and much more personal. It's the part that takes everything personally, that labels everything instantly as good or bad, fair or unfair. It's the part that doesn't just feel pain. It holds onto it, repeats it, amplifies it. And here's the scary part. Without even realizing it, most of us are training our egos every single day. Every time we get annoyed because someone looked at us funny. Every time we hold a grudge, even when we know it's eating us up inside. Every time we ruminate on something someone said 5 years ago. That's not just a moment of reaction. It's practice. And the ego loves practice. See, the ego is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. But instead of giving you power, it locks you in. Let me explain. Imagine you're having a normal day, walking down the street. Someone bumps into you without apologizing. Your ego immediately kicks in. How rude. You feel disrespected, insulted, angry. But then you keep walking, and suddenly you're no longer enjoying your day. You're lost in a spiral of imaginary arguments with that stranger. That one moment, a bump on the sidewalk, just hijacked your peace. And it happens all the time, not because life is cruel, but because we've trained ourselves to take everything personally. We've wired our minds to believe that everything is about us, our feelings, our status, our expectations. And the more the world doesn't match that inner picture, the more upset we become. We become easy to hurt and hard to satisfy. And that's not freedom, that's a cage. But here's the part that changes everything. Just like we trained the ego, we can retrain it. Instead of blindly agreeing, we pause. We ask ourselves, is this really about me? It's not about becoming passive or weak. It's about becoming wise enough to choose your response instead of reacting from habit. The truth is, the ego can't survive stillness. It thrives on drama, on control, on always needing to win. But when you sit in silence, like in meditation, and you watch your thoughts rise and fall without grabbing them, something beautiful happens. The ego starts to loosen its grip. You begin to see that not every thought deserves a reaction. Not every emotion needs to be chased. Not every fight is worth fighting. You don't have to be offended. You don't have to prove yourself. You don't have to hold on to that bitterness anymore. And the more you practice letting go, gently, patiently, with kindness, the lighter your mind becomes. The ego shrinks. Your reactions soften. Life still throws its chaos at you, but now, It doesn't knock you over. This is not easy work. It takes time. It takes humility. But it leads to something the ego can never give you: peace. So if you're tired of suffering from the same mental patterns, if you're tired of feeling like the world is constantly against you, start here. Notice the ego, question its story, and practice the opposite of what it wants. Instead of reacting with control, try curiosity. Instead of clinging to pride, try compassion. Instead of needing to win, try being okay not having the last word. Because the truth is, you are not your ego. You are the awareness that can choose something better. And when you do, life opens up in a whole new way. But choosing better, choosing stillness, choosing presence, isn't always as easy as it sounds. Because the moment we stop reacting and start listening, we begin to meet something even more challenging: silence. Not the quiet outside, but the noise within. Let's be honest, sitting alone in silence sounds simple, but when we actually try to do it, really do it, most of us discover that it's anything but easy. Not because there's anything physically difficult about sitting still, but because when everything outside goes quiet, what's inside begins to get loud. We live in a world that constantly pulls our attention outward. There's always a screen to look at, a message to reply to, a task to check off, a problem to solve, or something to chase. We move through the day surrounded by noise, not just literal sound, but mental clutter. And in that noise, we lose contact with ourselves. And yet, it's in those rare moments of stillness, those pauses between distractions, that we come face to face with the person we actually live with every second of our lives, ourselves. That's when we begin to notice the discomfort we've been running from. It shows up as restlessness in the body, as a tightness in the chest, a racing mind, a sinking feeling in the gut. It shows up as boredom, frustration, sadness, or a vague sense that we should be doing something else, anything else. This is where so many people give up. They assume that if silence feels hard, they must be doing something wrong. But the truth is exactly the opposite. That discomfort you feel, that's the doorway. It's not a sign of failure. It's a sign that you're finally beginning to see what's been there all along, hidden under layers of distraction and busyness. And what meditation invites us to do, what it gently, persistently asks, is not to escape that discomfort, but to learn how to stay. To build the capacity to sit with ourselves as we are, not as we wish we were. To tolerate our own company without reaching for something to numb the experience or push it away. That might sound small, but it's actually revolutionary. Because here's the thing, most of us have never really been taught how to have a relationship with ourselves. We know how to perform, how to impress, how to hustle, how to meet other people's expectations, but we don't know how to sit quietly and feel our own emotions without judgment. We don't know how to watch our thoughts without trying to fix them or fight them. And yet, this is where all true growth begins. Not by forcing ourselves to change, but by first learning how to accept where we are. Not as a way of giving up, but as a way of laying the foundation for something more honest, more grounded, and ultimately more powerful. The irony is that most people want peace, but they don't realize that peace isn't something you find somewhere out there. Peace is something you build inside. And the first brick you lay is tolerance. Tolerance for discomfort, tolerance for your own flaws, tolerance for the messy, complicated human experience of being alive. And with time, that tolerance matures into something deeper: respect. You begin to respect your inner world, even when it's turbulent. You begin to treat yourself with a kind of gentleness that doesn't depend on always being in a good mood or having everything figured out. And that's when real transformation becomes possible. Because once you stop fighting yourself, you free up all that energy, all that mental and emotional tension, and you can begin to use it for healing, for clarity, for connection. But it starts, always, with the willingness to sit down, stay present, and say to yourself, I'm here, I'm listening. Because the truth is, you are not your ego. You are the awareness that can choose something better. And when you do, life opens up in a whole new way. Not louder, not faster, but deeper. But here's the part we don't talk about enough. Choosing better, choosing stillness, presence, and self-awareness often feels harder than simply staying on autopilot. Because the moment we stop reacting and start listening, we come face to face with something most of us have spent years trying to avoid. Silence. Not just the quiet around us, but the kind that reveals what's been buried inside us all along. And I don't mean kindness in the way it's often portrayed, as something soft, sentimental, or polite. I mean the real thing, the kind of kindness that can sit with someone in pain without needing to fix them. The kind of compassion that sees someone acting out, not with judgment, but with the awareness that their behavior is probably rooted in their own suffering. That kind of strength doesn't scream. It doesn't dominate. It doesn't seek applause. But it changes everything. Because here's what most people miss. It's not just the world around you that needs kindness. It's you. Most of us go through life treating ourselves like we're broken machines that constantly need fixing. We analyze, criticize, and push ourselves with the harshness of a drill sergeant, convinced that the only way to improve is through pressure and punishment. But growth doesn't happen in tension. Growth happens in safety. Think about it. A plant doesn't bloom when you yell at it or pull at its roots. It blooms when the soil is right, when it's given the right conditions to unfold in its own time. The same is true for the human mind. Meditation isn't just about sitting still. It's about creating the mental and emotional conditions for healing to happen. And one of the most powerful ways to do that is by intentionally bringing forth kindness, not as a reward for being perfect, but as a natural response to being human. There's a practice in many contemplative traditions called metta, or loving kindness meditation, where you sit quietly and direct a sense of warmth and goodwill first toward yourself, and then gradually outward, to someone you love, to someone neutral, to someone difficult, and eventually, to all beings. It sounds simple, even abstract at first, but if you really lean into it, if you let that feeling grow even a little, something begins to shift inside. You start to see that kindness isn't a luxury, it's a survival skill. Because the truth is, you cannot hate yourself into a better version of yourself. You cannot grow while being at war with your own heart. But when you begin to treat yourself with the same care you might offer to a close friend, not because you're trying to escape your flaws, but because you're finally seeing the whole of who you are, the tension starts to loosen. The harsh voice softens. And in that space, new possibilities begin to open up. This doesn't mean we stop holding ourselves accountable. On the contrary, true kindness has depth. It tells the truth. It notices when we're off course. But it corrects us gently, like a wise mentor who sees both our limitations and our potential. It doesn't shame us into silence. It encourages us to try again, and it extends beyond ourselves. When you start treating yourself with more compassion, you naturally begin to treat others the same way. You stop needing everyone to be perfect just so you can feel safe. You stop being so reactive to other people's moods, mistakes, or judgments. You start to understand that most of what people do, even the unpleasant stuff, is just their own way of coping. And instead of responding with more fire, you learn to respond with calm, with boundaries, yes, but also with understanding. That's how the world starts to change. Not from loud speeches or perfect systems, but from one person at a time, choosing to relate to themselves and to others, with less violence and more care. So if you've spent most of your life pushing yourself hard, trying to prove your worth, or believing that you need to earn love through performance, maybe this is the moment to try something different. Maybe it's time to stop trying to force yourself to change and start learning to nurture the change from within. Because when kindness becomes your foundation, not just toward others, but toward yourself, the whole structure of your life becomes stronger, more stable, and far more peaceful. And when that kindness is paired with presence, with honesty, with the courage to face yourself fully, something even deeper begins to take shape. After everything we've explored, discomfort, ego, stillness, compassion, it becomes clear that what we're really moving toward isn't control or perfection or some fantasy version of peace. What we're actually after is something quieter, deeper, and far more enduring. We're seeking wisdom. And wisdom isn't about being clever. It's not about having all the answers or quoting ancient texts or speaking with some mystical calm that makes everyone around you feel small. No, wisdom is the ability to see clearly, and to act with intention. It's when you start to notice your own patterns without becoming a prisoner of them. It's when a familiar wave of anger or fear rises inside you, but instead of reacting automatically, you pause, you breathe, you reflect, you choose, and in that space between impulse and action, freedom is born. Because most of our suffering doesn't come from what's happening around us. It comes from how we meet those moments. From the stories we tell ourselves, the assumptions we make, the grip we keep on how we think life should be. Wisdom is what loosens that grip. Not by force, but by clarity. When you really start to observe your mind, through meditation, through reflection, through honest awareness, you begin to see how much of your suffering is optional. You realize how often we fuel our own pain just by resisting what's already here. We feel anxious, and then get frustrated about being anxious. We feel sad, and then judge ourselves for feeling sad. We feel anger, and then act on it in ways that cause more damage. But wisdom interrupts that loop. It says, wait. And what's beautiful is that wisdom doesn't always need a big, dramatic insight. Sometimes it's as simple as choosing silence instead of sarcasm, breathing before speaking, forgiving before exploding, letting go before controlling. These are small choices, but they add up. And over time, they build a different kind of life, one that's not ruled by fear or ego or urgency, but grounded in understanding. And here's the part that often surprises people. Wisdom isn't distant. It's not reserved for monks on mountaintops or sages in caves. You already have it, at least a seed of it. And every time you pause, every time you respond with care instead of habit, every time you stay present with your experience instead of rejecting it, that seed grows. Wisdom is available to anyone who's willing to be honest, curious, and humble enough to begin again. It doesn't demand that you be perfect. It only asks that you pay attention. Because the more clearly you see, the less trapped you feel. The more you understand, the less you need to control. And the more you let go of forcing things to be a certain way, the more space you create for peace to arise. Naturally, quietly, like a sunrise you didn't see coming. So if there's one gift you can offer yourself moving forward, let it be this. Don't rush to escape discomfort. Don't feed the ego's endless hunger. Don't abandon yourself when things get hard. Instead, slow down, stay, watch, and trust that every breath you take with awareness is shaping a wiser, freer version of you, one choice at a time. So, maybe now you see it. That feeling you've been carrying, the one you couldn't quite name, it was never a sign that something's wrong with you. It was an invitation, a quiet call to slow down, to look inward, to get curious instead of critical. Discomfort isn't a flaw to be fixed. It's a doorway, and the more we stop running from it, the more we begin to see our pain, our impatience, our fears. They're not enemies. They're just parts of us waiting to be understood. The ego, with all its noise and demands, isn't bad either. It's just scared. It's trying to protect us the only way it knows how. But there's a deeper part of you, one that doesn't need to control everything to feel safe. One that knows how to breathe through chaos, how to listen without judgment, how to stay grounded even when everything around you feels uncertain. That part of you is already here, already waiting. All it needs is your attention. So if all you do after this video is pause, just once, and choose to stay present with whatever you're feeling, that's enough. That's a beginning. You don't have to change your life overnight. You don't need to become some perfectly calm person who never reacts. You just need to notice, to care, to try again tomorrow and the day after that. And maybe, one breath at a time, you'll begin to build something stronger, quieter, and far more lasting than comfort. You'll begin to build peace. And now, I'd love to hear from you. If this video resonated with you in any way, if something clicked, or even just made you pause for a second, leave a comment below and tell me what stayed with you. One sentence, one insight, one word, whatever feels true. And if you think someone else in your life might need to hear this too, share it with them. Because we're all just trying to figure out how to live with our own minds. And maybe, just maybe, a little reminder like this is exactly what someone out there needs today. Thank you for being here. Truly. Until next time, stay kind, stay curious, and keep coming back to yourself.